Good morning, everyone. My name is Blair Horner. I'm the Executive Director with NYPIRG, New York Public Interest Research Group. And today we're here for a very specific reason. New York, the nation, the world is facing huge costs due to climate change. The rapidly heating planet is rising sea levels. It's making our world hotter. It's contributing to air pollution due to forest fires. And the list goes on and on and on. And the cost to New Yorkers is going to be staggering. This chart right here lists some of the costs that are expected that have been reported for Long Island. In particular, this number here is that one expectation from the Long Island Regional Planning Council is that $75 to $100 billion in costs are going to be absorbed by New York taxpayers unless something changes. We've documented that in the past 13 months, Governor Hochul has pledged $2.7 billion in climate resiliency projects and to deal with climate damages. The costs are staggering. The default setting is the taxpayers will pay. We think the oil companies who are responsible for the climate crisis, who consistently lied to the public about what was going on and continue to this day to do so, are responsible. And they have the money. Over the last 2.5 years, they've made almost $750 billion in profits. They have the money, they should pay. We all learned very early on in our lives in kindergarten, you make a mess, you clean it up. So we think the oil companies should be on the hook for picking up the costs of climate damages in New York, not the taxpayers. Legislation's been introduced in Albany to do that. The state Senate has already passed it. Today, NYPIRG, my colleagues here, and as well as hundreds of other organizations statewide are calling on Governor Hochul to include that Senate legislation in her executive budget. Make big oil pay.
I'm Patty Wood, the Executive Director of Grassroots Environmental Education. We are a nonprofit environmental health organization based here on Long Island and in Westchester County. Now, climate change brought about by burning of fossil fuels is having and will continue to have a significant impact on human health, and that impact comes with a very large price tag. But we are decidedly past the hypothetical stage of what climate change could do to our Earth. The crisis is unfolding before us in real time. But we are looking beyond the immediate cleanup and rebuilding and reinforcement to care for those who are harmed by prolonged heat waves, increased air pollution, floods, and chemical exposures from collapsing infrastructure. Who will pay for the health impacts of increased asthma and other respiratory diseases from air pollution? Who will pay for the follow-on results of burning fossil fuels, like the wildfires burning thousands of miles away, creating harmful air pollution and particulate matter in New York, even making New York City's air quality the worst in the world for several days this past summer? Or the increase in mosquitoes and the diseases that they spread? Or the healthcare costs for the uninsured who suffer from heat stress and related illnesses? And who bears the cost for the cooling centers, the transportation for the elderly and the disabled to those centers? Ultimately, children will suffer the most. 90% of diseases resulting from the climate crisis are likely to affect children under the age of 5 years old. And who will pay for the loss of farms from drought, prolonged heat waves, and floods, especially here on Long Island, where many farms are at sea level? This week we are hearing about the erosion of Fire Island's beaches and the potential loss of tourism income. Those barrier beaches and homes on the water's edge will surely be lost in the coming decades or sooner, no matter how much sand is brought in by the Army Corps of Engineers. But maybe we should be paying as much attention to those who grow our food. The USDA says that climate change will likely diminish our progress on food security through local availability, interrupted transport conduits, and storage, leading to diminished food safety. By 2050, 24 million children worldwide are projected to be undernourished as a result of the climate crisis. Who will pay for the cost of housing and feeding and providing medical care for the steady flow of immigrants, which we're all familiar with, who show up here in New York from areas that have become uninhabitable because of climate change? And who will pay to replace the trees already lost and those that will succumb in more violent and frequent storms linked directly to climate change? Trees don't just take down power lines. They prevent soil erosion and they capture carbon. They help cool disadvantaged urban communities and lower life-threatening temperatures. The Exxon company has been trying to persuade the world for decades that climate change is a hoax, despite what their own scientists have been telling them. The fossil fuel industry will never do the right thing, and so we have to do it for them. Amen. By passing legislation to make the polluters pay, not taxpayers. Thank you.
Woo! Woo! Nice. All right. Great.
My name is Randall Sorsher. I'm with All Our Energy. We're a grassroots local environmental organization. This issue is about fundamental fairness. If you cause the damage, you pay for the damage. It's us, the New York State taxpayers, or it's them, the oil producers. We just had the hottest June, July, August, and September on record. Temperatures are rising just like oil profits. But so are the tides, and so are the waves, and so is the damage and the cost to repair and rebuild after every extreme weather event. We've just come through extreme weather events. Sandy is in all our recent memories, as was the 2-day torrential downpour we had last week. It had more inches per rain in any storm that was not categorized as a hurricane. If you don't believe in climate change, it doesn't mean you're immune from climate change.
Nice.
There was a song in the 80s that was called Star Trekking Across the Universe. They used to play it a lot from WLIR. It's a station that was probably about 5 miles from here. And there was a line in the song, "You cannot change the laws of physics." Water boils at 212 degrees and it freezes at 32 degrees. Like it or not, believe in it or not. Higher ocean water temperatures equals bigger storms, equals more damage. We're joined today by this pink pig. It's representative of the $750 billion in profits the oil companies have raked in the near past. They can afford it, and they need to pay for it, building us back after each of the next extreme storms that will be coming. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Margaret Marr. I'm a mother, a grandmother, and a concerned citizen, and also a volunteer of Food and Water Watch. I am really frightened what we are leaving our grandchildren and children. Climate change is devastating. As a grandmother, I worry about my grandson and future grandchildren. How can these innocents be burdened with devastation of climate change brought on by big oil, and nothing is really being done? We need to urge Governor Hochul to include the Climate Change Superfund Act in her proposed budget. This legislation is an element of a bigger picture. We need to move off fossil fuels as well as managing the impacts of climate change. Living on the island, and I live in Merrick, I've experienced 100-year storms every few years. The flooding has been historic. We have experienced a major storm with 8 inches of water here recently, flooding homes, apartments, businesses. The island was hit extremely hard. While we are dealing with climate change, big oil made $376 billion, that's $1 billion in profits in 2022. It is outrageous. When is enough enough? How many catastrophic storms, hurricanes do we need before there is a change? As Long Islanders, we are painfully aware of how vulnerable our region is to climate change. As we prepare our grandchildren to face a world of extreme storms, eroded beaches, flooding, and worse, it is imperative that big oil play their part. Our unsustainable reliance on fossil fuels created this climate chaos. Governor Hochul must make these dirty, greedy profiteers pay to clean it up. Again, $376 billion in profits in 2022. We need Governor Hochul to be a climate leader and continue moving New York off fossil fuels by passing the Climate Superfund in the state budget. Thank you very much.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Madden. I'm the sustainability organizer with the Long Island Progressive Coalition. And we are here alongside our partners to call on Governor Kathy Hochul to include the Climate Change Superfund Act in her budget next year. Long Island is on the front line of climate change, from coastal erosion, rising sea levels, and air pollution sickening our community members. We know that something needs to be done. We also know from our experience with the Grum and Plume, illegal toxic dumping in Brentwood, and the dozens of Superfund sites across this region that polluters should foot the bill for the damage that they cause. This is no different when it comes to the impacts of climate change. We are projected to need $75 to $100 billion over the next few decades to invest in resiliency and infrastructure needs for this vulnerable island. It is incumbent that the oil companies who have reaped the profits while destroying this planet pay for their damage. We are a member of the statewide New Yorker News Coalition, and the Climate Change Superfund is a key piece of legislation in our 2024 Climate Jobs and Justice package. And so we are proud to stand here today with our partners and coalition members from 370 organizations across New York State to call on Governor Kathy Hochul to include the Climate Change Superfund Act in next year's budget. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. The bullet points from today are oil companies made enormous profits over the past 2.5 years. They have the money. They're responsible for the damage. They should pay to clean it up. Governor Hochul should take the step and include the Climate Change Superfund Act in her budget, her proposed budget that comes out this January. New Yorkers should not foot the bill for the damages caused by the oil companies. The oil companies should pay for those damages. Thank you.